Nina Holt was 2 hours from home when her GPS died. It happened suddenly. One moment the blue line was guiding her along the interstate, the next the screen went dark and wouldn't come back. Dead battery, she assumed, though she charged it that morning. She plugged it into the car charger. Nothing. It was 10:45 p.m. She was somewhere in rural Oregon, surrounded by dark forest on both sides of the highway, and the next town, according to the last thing her GPS had shown, was 18 miles ahead. She drove on. 18 miles. She could do 18 miles. Then the construction signs started. Orange barriers, flashing lights, a road closed sign stretched across both lanes, and beside it, a detour arrow pointing left onto a narrow 2-lane road that disappeared immediately into the trees. She sat at the barrier for a moment, engine idling. The road ahead was genuinely blocked. She could see the construction equipment parked across the lanes in the distance. She had no GPS. Her phone had 1 bar of signal that flickered in and out. She hadn't passed another car in 40 minutes. She turned left. The detour road was narrow and winding, the forest pressing close on both sides. No streetlights, no houses, just trees and darkness, and her headlights cutting a small cone through it all. She had been driving for 15 minutes when she saw the light ahead, warm and yellowish, a sign glowing through the trees. A gas station. Small, old, the kind with 2 pumps and a single-room convenience store. The sign said, "Open." She almost didn't stop. She had half a tank, enough to get through the detour probably, but the isolation had been wearing on her, and the light looked welcoming, and she needed to ask someone how long this detour was. She pulled in. The man behind the counter was in his 40s, heavyset, with a friendly face and a flannel shirt. He smiled when she came in. "Late night to be driving," he said. "GPS died. How long is this detour?" He thought for a moment. "About 22 miles. Rough road for some of it, but you'll be fine." He paused. "You want some coffee? Fresh pot." She bought coffee and a bottle of water and stood at the counter for a few minutes, grateful for the human company. His name was Walt, he said. He'd run this station for 20 years. Quiet out here, but he liked it. "You get many people on this detour?" she asked. "Few a night, more than usual this week with the construction." He paused, wiping the counter with a cloth. "You travel alone often?" Something about the question made her pause. The tone was perfectly friendly, just conversation, but something in her shifted slightly. "My husband's meeting me at the next town." Walt smiled. "Good," he said. "Long drive to do alone." She thanked him and left. She was pulling back onto the road when she noticed something in her rearview mirror. Walt had come out of the station and was standing at the edge of the lot, watching her go. Just watching, arms at his sides, the friendly expression gone. His face in the rearview mirror was flat and still, the face of a person thinking about something very carefully. She accelerated. She had been back on the detour road for about 10 minutes when the truck appeared behind her. Large, dark-colored, no distinguishing features she could make out in her mirror. It had come from nowhere. One moment the road behind her was empty, the next the headlights were there, maybe 100 yards back. She told herself it was just another driver on the detour. She drove steadily. The truck kept its distance. Then the road curved sharply, and in the brief moment when her headlights swept the trees to the right, she saw something. A car, pulled off the road, half hidden in the trees. An older sedan, one door open, the interior light on. She slowed instinctively. The truck behind her slowed too. She stopped, looked at the car and the trees. No one visible inside. Door hanging open, as if someone had gotten out in a hurry or been pulled out. She looked in her mirror. The truck had stopped too, maybe 80 yards back. Engine running, not moving. She locked her doors and drove. Her phone found signal for about 90 seconds on a high point on the road, and she used it to call 911. She described the car in the trees, the make, the approximate location, the open door. The dispatcher was calm, professional, asked her to stay on the line. The signal died. She was alone again, on a dark road in a dark forest, with a truck behind her that had been following at exactly the same distance for the past 8 miles. She tried to think clearly. The truck hadn't gotten closer, hadn't done anything threatening, just followed. Could be coincidence. Same road, same direction, same speed. But then she slowed down deliberately, dropping to 30 miles an hour on a straight stretch where there was no reason to slow. The truck slowed too, maintained the distance exactly. Not coincidence. She sped up, 70 on a road meant for 50. The truck sped up, same distance, 70 yards exactly. She thought about Walt, the question he'd asked. You travel alone often? The way he'd watched her leave. She thought about how quickly the truck had appeared after she'd left the station. She thought about the car in the trees with its door hanging open. She drove faster. The detour ended suddenly, the narrow road feeding back onto the interstate, a street light overhead, the lights of a small town visible a mile ahead. She hit the on-ramp doing 65 and didn't slow down until she was on the highway. She looked in her mirror. The truck had stopped at the end of the detour road, sitting at the junction, headlights on, not pulling onto the highway, just sitting there, watching her go. She drove straight to the town, found a gas station on the main street, bright, busy, 2 other cars at the pumps. She pulled in and sat with her engine running and her doors locked and her hands shaking on the wheel. She called 911 again. Better signal this time. She told them everything, the car in the trees, the truck, Walt at the gas station, the question he asked. The dispatcher listened. Then, "Can you describe the truck?" She described it. A pause on the line. "Ma'am, we've had 2 reports tonight of a dark truck following women on that detour road. We have a car headed to that junction now." Another pause. "The car in the trees you described, we're aware of it. It belongs to a woman who was reported missing 3 days ago." Nina sat very still. "We've been watching that stretch of road," the dispatcher said carefully. "The detour was not set up by the construction crew. The barriers were placed by someone else. We don't know who yet." The detour had been a trap. Someone had blocked the highway and redirected traffic onto that road deliberately. How many drivers had turned left tonight, alone, into the dark forest, following a detour that led nowhere good? How many had made it out? The man who called himself Walt was arrested 4 days later at a different gas station, 40 miles north. His real name was Gerald Pruitt. He had a record, assault, stalking, a conviction from 15 years ago that he'd served time for. The truck was found abandoned in the forest, 2 miles off the detour road. Inside were items belonging to 4 different women. 3 of them were safe. 1 was not. The woman's car Nina had seen in the trees was found alive, disoriented, dehydrated, hidden in a structure deep in the forest that Gerald Pruitt had built over several years. She recovered. The construction company whose name had been on the fake barriers had never worked in that county. The signs had been purchased at an auction. The barriers had been stolen from a storage yard 3 weeks earlier. Gerald Pruitt told investigators in a flat and troubled voice that he had been running the detour on and off for 2 years, different roads, different nights. When asked how many times, he said he'd lost count. Nina Holt never drove alone at night again, and every time she sees a detour sign, those orange arrows pointing into the dark, she keeps driving straight, barriers or not. Some roads, she learned, are not meant to be followed.